Welcome to Shakeshero, the podcast that bridges the gap between you and all things Shakespeare. I'm Chloe Baldwin.
I'm Paul Stafford, and today we have the second part of our ridiculously long episode. I guess that's just going to be the norm from now on.
I love it.
Of the 1967 film production of Taming of the Shrew, starring Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. And we're also talking about adaptations in this same episode, which is why it's so long. And the adaptation of Taming of the Shrew was also a movie called 10 Things I Hate About You.
A 90s movie.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly the year. It's like super late 90s or like early 2000s. And it's starring Julia Stiles, Heath Ledger, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Larissa Oleynik.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know that was an adaptation...
Surprise!
Surprise! And we're also going to talk about it. And we're going to talk about the nature of adaptations and what we think about it and what it means to us. Yeah. And so the last episode, if you haven't caught it, is our long summary...
and analysis.
Woven in with a shitload of thoughts and jokes about Shakespeare and about Taming of the Shrew of the 1967
and that movie, which
production.
Is great.
We loved it so much.
We loved it, but I hate
happened.
this play. but we I've throughout that podcast, I think I realized that maybe I don't, but I hate it. But no, I think what I realized is I hate it, but maybe I'm supposed to hate it. Maybe that's what Shakespeare wanted.
But I hate you. But
right.
I love you.
But that's kind of what the play's about. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of things that I say I don't like about Shakespeare, but you're like, isn't that what's great about it?
But I kind of hate it right now.
I feel like you're in my shoes normally.
I know. I feel like we've switched places. But yeah, so
we saw a movie recently called Midsummer, which came out a couple of years ago.
OMMAR. That Midsummer, not Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yeah, exactly.
I keep getting confused.
It's about it's a super bright colored horror movie because it's all in daylight, but it's like a horror movie. So that's like a gimmick of it. It's not really a gimmick. I think it's not a gimmick. It's an amazing feat of masterful filmmaking.
Masterful.
On a granular level, every scene and the themes they put in, the sound, everything.
The script.
But what literally happens is infuriating and terrible.
Just that last scene.
And at the end of the movie,
last thing that happens. The very last thing.
At the end of the movie, I'm like, I hate it.
I know.
But every step through the whole movie, I loved it. And that's how pretty much we both feel about this movie.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's every step along the way, I'm I'm with you. I see how this is building. I love it. I love it. It's leading us down a dark path. I'm with you down the dark path. And then I'm and then they're like, fuck you. That's what it feels like. Like you get to the last page of the book and the dog dies. Fuck this. Yes, I am referencing a specific book. I won't tell you which one. We've given you enough spoilers for Frozen. Oh, I'm still mad about that book. Anyway.
It's oh god, it's all coming out now.
No, it's all coming out.
It's like Monty Python in The Meaning of Life when he's in the end of the movie where he's like, hey, come here with me. It's not the end of the movie. It should have been the end of the movie, but it's like that one skit where he's like, hey, come with me, and you're following this butler guy, and he takes you through all these little things, and you're like, it's gonna happen, and he keeps coming you up, and then at the very it happens for way too long, and then even longer, and it keeps happening,
so long.
And then you finally get to him, and he turns around, and he's like, why are you still following me? Fuck off.
That is what it feels
That's this movie.
Yeah. Oh, so for you as the audience, time may have passed. I don't know what your life is like, but for us, no time has passed. So at the end of the last episode,
why'd you tell them? You're revealing the mystique of the podcast.
Oh, sorry. I don't know how much time has passed.
We have so much time. We do this every day.
We're genies. We live in a lamp. I don't know. 10,000 years. But I was about to tell you a story, and I think this story is really relevant to how I feel about this play now. Not how I felt about it before we watched this movie and before we started talking about it, but how I feel about it after having this conversation we just had.
Ooh, that's interesting.
So...
I like story.
Yeah, so once upon a time, I went to see a play, and the play was at one of my favorite theaters in Chicago called House Theater, and I just love the way that they work, and the play was about this group of people creating a play, so it's play within a play kind of thing. So in this play, we see a rehearsal, and it's a fight rehearsal, and I'm a fight choreographer, so this is very near and dear to my heart. So in this fight rehearsal, they're they're going through some fight choreography, and the fight choreography isn't that great. And they've just started rehearsing it, so the fight choreographer says to the director, they just started, give them some time to, get it up to speed, to get it better. And the director's like, no, this is stupid and I hate it. I want it to look real. And he's like, no, this is ridiculous. And they get in this really heated argument. And the director hits the fight choreographer. And he's like that. I want it to be like that. Because I want it to be real. Like, no fight choreography could ever look like that. Nothing on stage could ever. Yeah, you see what I'm getting at.
I gave her a knowing smile.
He did.
She got the point.
Yeah, so
that's great. I love that.
Exactly. So what we realize as the audience, right, is that, oh, this is a play, so that was fight choreography too. So we're seeing the difference between like undeveloped fight choreography and like really great fight choreography that can look real, and it disproves the point that the director is trying to get at, that fight choreography can never look real. Because what we just saw looked really fucking real and it looked great. So even as the audience, for a second, I bought into what the director was doing.
Meta.
It's super meta, and it's great, and I love it. And so I saw this play, and I was like, this is amazing. I love it. Like, as a fight choreographer, it totally proves what I'm always trying to say to directors. So I go back to, at the time, I was...
No, man, hit me for real!
Right, exactly, which, like, drives me up a fucking wall, which you know. Like, it just drives me crazy. It's like, no, it can look as good and better if you just do it. A
lot of young filmmakers will think like it's better if they just hit me for real, so it looks real, and it drives Chloe insane.
It makes me crazy. It's like, no, you don't have to prove your machismo because everybody's hitting each other for real. We can make it look better if we curate it like artists do. Okay, yeah. I'm fine. Everything's fine. So I go back to, so I was in college at the time and like, you know, a young upstart fight choreographer. And so I go back to one of my professors and I go, like, I'm so excited to tell him the story. I'm like, I saw this play. It was amazing. Like, I feel like this is going to prove the point that, like, we're always trying to tell people as fight choreographers. I'm a young fight choreographer. And he is like, you know, he's like this wonderful British man that is like so jaded in some ways, but like kind of realistic, especially more so than wide-eyed, you know, 19-year-old Chloe or whatever I was at the time. And he goes, well, do you think that the audience is actually going to realize that? Like, they're going to think that the director is right. Like, they're not going to realize that it's fight choreography that they're looking at. And they're not going to take that step back and see that. And I'm like, no, they are. And he's like, no, they're not. And so to me, it's like...
What?
Like,
he thinks audiences are stupid?
Yeah. So,
wait.
So, I know, I disagree with that. But that's partly because I'm optimistic or partly just because I think it's true. I think people are smart. You're looking the same way that I felt about it at the time. But that story to me always emblemizes like two very different ways of looking at an audience. And the way that I always look at an audience is like, you know, they're smart and they get it. And I think sometimes maybe that's too optimistic, but I think that that's how I like to approach things. And then there's the other way of looking at it where it's like, they're not going to get that. It's too meta. And I think that it's kind of somewhere in the middle. But I think I'm right because I think I'm right. But like, so what do you think about that? I'm curious as to what you think.
I think a few different things. I think I'm not scared of making a meta point.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot to talk about there. Part of it is you're worried about I think it depends on a lot of things. So let's just go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Like if you're trying to get the widest audience possible, I think you have to look at your audiences as stupid. Mm-hmm. Because you have to cater to the lowest common denominator to get everybody in the door, to get what people will like. And that maxim will permeate every level of your production, and it probably will like determine what play you're trying to choose.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't try to choose a play with had a meta point and then like try to negate that meta point. That'd be stupid. Yeah. If I was choosing a play with a meta point, I'm assuming I'm someone who has to believe that somebody can get it.
Yeah. And
I don't think you can spoon feed a meta point to someone. Like that's
not gonna work.
Weird.
Yeah.
But you have to accept that, you know, you can drive in your own direction, and the people who align with you will get it, and then the people who don't won't. Mm-hmm. But it's, I mean, I'm struggling to even like contextualize this point because there's so many like things you have to think about. Like if it's a movie, will it sell? If it's a play, will it get people in the door? Like, you know, all those things you have to think about. I'm trying to like not think about that or not like factor that into what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
if I'm just talking about if people will like it or not, I am somebody, like, as you found out when we're talking about, like, cinematography, and we're talking about, like, a lot of times you had an idea and you guys had the script and you guys had what needed to happen. And I'm like, look, this is not playing on camera.
Yeah.
It is not clear.
Yeah.
So I am someone who likes to paint in bold strokes and, like, make things abundantly clear, like, visually, like, because, like, you can make things clear, you know, with sound, with visuals, and also with, like, words.
Yeah.
And so I am someone who, like, if you can do all three, not because people are stupid, but because I don't want to have to try too hard to understand it.
Yeah.
And we talked about this, like, passive and active. I said listenability when I first talked about this to you.
Yeah.
This way I like to describe music.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if something is very difficult to listen to, like jazz, like it's active. You have to try really hard to get on board.
You have to come to it.
Yeah, and so not everybody might be there. Or passive would be like pop music. Like, it's just super easy to like, and something that a mark of really great music would have elements of both.
Yeah.
And so I would probably, I think, revise it to say passive and active consumption.
Yeah.
Of whatever you're talking about.
Yeah.
It could be food, it could be music, it could be movies.
Yeah.
And so, in that sense, I don't think my audience is stupid because I'm not afraid to make a complex point.
Mm-hmm.
But I would, if I was making a complex point, I would want to make that complicated point I would want to ping it as many times as I could, as many places as I could. I'd want to drive it home. So no one's stupid. Like, I wouldn't be scared of, like, trying to go to a place, but I would also try to help them to get there as much as I could.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think that this is the question I'm always wrestling with, that I always, like, I want to ask other people about it, and I want to address it with myself, too, if I analyze something one way and then I see it another way. Or, like, with this, if I see it played to the best possible degree, then maybe it will make me reconsider it. So with Taming of the Shrew, do you think that meta point of...
The meta point being?
The meta point I'm
sorry. You were about to get there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. Sorry, that was
funny. You idiot.
That was really funny. Of Kate's speech at the end that clearly does not fit with her character and makes us balk and makes us angry. Do you think that that meta point is clear enough that the audience would walk out understanding it, or at the very least being enraged to the point where they feel what Shakespeare wanted them to feel?
If it was played like this movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, dude.
Shit.
This
is kind of cool.
I know.
This is exciting. I didn't think I liked this play. Maybe I like this play.
I love this. You're discovering something in the moment. I love it. It's great. Like, I discovered it for the first time. Like, and it's so funny. Like, I don't feel like I am someone who, like, understands, like, what complex movies are trying to get at on the first watch.
Yeah.
I have only become... So I've only learned enough about filmmaking and enough about all the elements of it to enjoy movies fourth and fifth time through. Mm-hmm. Like, most people, you watch a movie and then you don't want to watch it again the next day.
Yeah.
Unless there's more to dig through. Like if you don't know, if a movie is just one singular package and you know the story, and like, why would I know what's gonna happen. Why do I want to watch it again? But like, if you like, it's like music. I play a lot of different instruments now. I've produced a lot of things. One time I'll listen to a whole album and I'll just listen to the drums the whole album.
Yeah.
And the next time through I'll listen to the bass. And the next time through I'll listen to the word. I've listened to albums 10 times through and I still don't know any of the words because I haven't listened to the lyrics yet.
Right.
I'm listening to everything else.
Yeah.
So like, movies can be the same way. I'm listening to the score. I'm listening to, like, we've done cinematography now. I'm just literally just looking at, they missed that focus pull there. And I'm just like listening.
Right.
I'm watching, I'm consuming it in all these different layers.
All those levels.
One layer at a time.
Yeah.
And I may miss a lot of, like, just like story symbolism. Like, I feel like I'm new to story. Like, I get why people make certain decisions, but I don't know. It's like I don't feel like I specifically, me as a person, don't focus on a lot of the complexities of
character
why people do
relationship and how
things
that
they
feeds
do,
into
the flaws
that.
people have. I try to live my life. I have my moral code and I do the things that I do, but you know me, I'm very robotic and I'm very purposeful and I'm very like conscious, and I don't spend a lot of time trying to wade through the really messiness of like human nature.
Which is why I enjoy talking to you about Shakespeare so much, because it's like, in a way, I feel like it's like making us do that together in certain interesting ways.
And it's giving us like a third element to both focus on, as opposed to like trying to like talk to each other about each other, because it's messy too.
Yeah, and that's like kind of meta in and of itself too, because then it's like us talking about ourselves, which is a little like feedback loopy.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. It does offer like another level of like difficulty with trying to talk about it objectively.
Yeah.
But anyway, so because of all those things, like I miss sometimes symbolism when stories of like, oh, but they were doing this thing the whole time, but it really meant this.
Yeah.
I miss that a lot. And so when I feel like I get it, I'm like, it must have been super clear for me to get it.
That's funny though. Like, and to be honest, that makes me feel even more so. Like, if you're saying to me like I miss stuff like that, and you caught it in this production,
like I do. I don't know. Like,
but if you caught it here, like that makes me feel like there's hope, especially like in general for Shakespeare, because to me this is the one that comes across the least clearly, especially because I'd never fucking seen a production where it came across clearly.
So funny. This is so funny that we're watching this together for the first time,
Yeah.
and all the productions you've watched, you're not a fan of.
Yeah, and I couldn't get behind it, and I was like, and it also reminds me of something that I heard from somebody. So we were involved with a production of Othello a couple years ago, and at one point throughout that process, one of the actors that was in it, because I was like playing a small role because I was an apprentice, but one of the like lead actors, I heard them say, this production was directed by a white man, and they were like, I feel like Othello should only be directed by a black woman. And I was like, that's really interesting.
Was that Angela? Did she say
it was Angela?
I'm sorry, we don't want to get too much in the inside, but
But it made sense to me, and I don't want to say like carte blanche. That's not the right phrase, but like across the board, it should only be directed by a black woman. But I think the sentiment behind that is like that this is a story that's really important, and you need to really understand the plight of racism and the plight of sexism in a very intimate level in order to take on kind of the responsibility of telling this story, because otherwise you might do it in a really irresponsible way, which I think was happening with the production we were a part of in some ways. And I think that with this Taming of the Shrew, it was directed by a man, Zeffirelli, but I think he at some level was getting or accessing or having enough empathy for the plight of
I don't think it's
women.
impossible for a man to tell like the story.
I don't think so either. I think the sentiment is true. You have to take on that responsibility.
Put in the time.
Put in the work and the time.
I believe that.
Yeah, to have that empathy and to truly internalize that, to tell that story. And I think that, and of course you can't perfectly internalize it, but like you can really create a bridge and get there as much as you can if you're trying to tell this story.
The elements that are profound in this story are universal.
Yes, exactly.
Like everybody
being
can understand,
outsider,
like being trapped, feeling trapped, and like she's trapped because she's like a woman in this society. But I mean, like being trapped is a feeling.
Yeah.
That can be felt by anybody.
Absolutely. You just have to make sure you're recognizing that.
I'm not saying people who understand this know what it likes to be a woman, but I mean like people can understand what it's like to be trapped.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think if you can, and that's the nice thing too, is if you can relate that to a man who's felt trapped and be like, this woman feels trapped because she's a woman. They're like, well, I get trapped and that happens to women. Children can be trapped by their parents. Like you can have this experience in your life. Like people are trapped by how people are in higher status than them. Like people are trapped by just the circumstances of their life. Yeah. Which is what's happening to her. Right. So to me, it's like, it makes, and I think I might have even heard someone say at one point too, like, Taming the Shrew should only be directed by a woman. But I think the sentiment behind that is you have to be responsible with these stories that are about people that are being oppressed. And I think that understand that it's about that this is a huge part of it. And you have to put in the time to make sure that that's
understood.
And I think that if you really do that, you get a result like what we saw, which is
so good.
Which is really firing on all cylinders. And like and to me, when I watched the ending of that movie, I felt like that professor that I had in college who was like, well, people aren't gonna get that though. But
sounds very pessimistic.
I know,
I don't like it.
I know, and I don't either. So like hearing you say that as someone who's just coming to the story for the first time, and me kind of realizing that maybe it's like this little flower of hope that's blooming inside my heart, which is really nice. And I also feel like, I don't know, maybe that, I don't know, I still feel like I want to see my Taming of the Shrew where she stabs him at the end.
Oh, yeah, I would have been all fucking for that.
Right? I feel like I want my Tarantino Taming of the Shrew. Like, Chloe Baldwin Tarantino Taming of the Shrew, TM. Like I want to direct that. But I still do feel like maybe Shakespeare was actually trying to get at something that twinges that guilt in people, or twinges that empathy. Not guilt,
I mean,
empathy.
I can totally see that. I can totally see, I don't know, like, okay.
Can I give you my archaeology note now?
Sure.
So my archaeology thing that I found out, I don't know if archaeology is not the right word.
Do you mean anthropology?
I mean anthropology, but archaeology sounds more exciting.
Actually,
anthropology. I do mean anthropology, but archaeology is so much more fun. I feel like Indiana Jones.
Did you go dig up some bones?
No, Paul. I just took a crystal skull and switched it out with a little bag, and it tricked it.
Don't you dare mention that movie here. That's sacrilege.
Sorry.
Movie's crap.
Sorry.
All right, go ahead.
So... Oh my god, you just made so many enemies.
Nobody likes Crystal Skull. Who likes Crystal Skull? If you like Crystal Skull, fuck you.
Oh my god, Jesus Christ. So, what was I saying? Anthropology.
Anthropology.
So this is what I've been wanting to get to for like 3 hours. So between the time that we finished our 2 movies and we started this podcast, I went digging because I was like, I feel like, so we started this movie and I turned to Paul and I was like, is this the right movie? Like, I don't feel like this is how this play starts. And I couldn't remember why I felt like that. And the reason is there's a framing device in the original text of Taming of the Shrew. So the framing device is that there's this dude who's super drunk and he stumbles into this situation and he's like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, you're a rich man, you're a lord, and we're going to put on this play for you, lord. And he's like, what? His name's Christopher Sly. And he's like, okay, I guess I'm a lord. I didn't remember being a lord, but I guess that's what's happening. And he's just like really drunk and in this situation. And so they sit him down and they perform this play for him. And the play is the plot of Taming the Shrew that we just saw. And so there's this other play called Taming of a Shrew, where at the end of it, he like stumbles out and he's like, well, I guess I just learned a lesson from the rich people.
Another Shakespeare play?
No. It's just an anonymous play. But the idea is that these plays were probably both based on the same source material. So at the end, he stumbles out and he goes, oh, I guess that I learned how to tame a shrew. Learned a good lesson from the rich people. Like, now I know how to tame a shrew. So, like, that's the framing device. So I think that... So, a couple things. It made me think a couple things. But the first thing is... So what you were saying about this feeling like a parable, it is a parable. Like, it's supposed to be a parable. Like, it's supposed to be some sort of story that's making a point within another story.
Huh.
This is already a lot. I know.
This is a lot to process. I'm also like trying to make sure I'm following you here.
Yeah. So there's 2 plays. This is the Taming of the Shrew. This is the play by Shakespeare.
Yeah.
There's Taming of a Shrew, which has at the end of this thing where he stumbles out. But so that tells us then that Shakespeare made the conscious choice not to have it cleanly end with us going back to Christopher Sly and him stumbling out of this parable. This is just us. Wait. Yeah.
I'm confused about the ending in the beginning. You're saying, I thought you said it opens with Christopher Sly.
Yeah.
Are you saying it's supposed to open and end with Christopher Sly?
Not the Shakespeare version, but maybe the original version of this play or this story. So it's like Christopher Sly is getting tricked into thinking he's a nobleman, and he's told this whole story, and then at the end he's like, well, I guess that's how you tame a shrew. Ha! So I think that based on that framing device, we're supposed to intentionally look at this story and go, this is all bullshit because this guy was tricked. Does that make sense? So like so as the audience, we're supposed to look at this drunk guy and since he says, "Oh, I guess that's how you tame a shrew," we're supposed to be like, "No, you idiot. Like that was a parable and it was a bad parable that you were told because you were tricked." Just like society tricks men into thinking that, like,
I know I said audiences are smart, but I'm not quite getting the point.
No, and I feel like that's why Shakespeare took out the end of it, because it feels condescending.
So is it supposed to be like, hey, I'm stupid and I think this is good, so if you're stupid, you'll be on my side.
Yes.
But if you're not, you'll know.
Yes.
Yeah, it is condescending, and it is, honestly, because the fact that it, like, okay, there is a metacognition of every production that some audience members, that a large percentage of audience members, especially today, are subject to have, that they are realizing that somebody wrote this, and this is the voice, in some ways, this is the voice of the writer, and not the character.
Yeah.
And so this can be a bad thing sometimes, in which if a character in a play says something that's racist or bad, they'd be like, look, the writer's bad.
Right.
And that's like a bad version.
It's a bad way to look at it.
It's a bad way to look at it, and it's also... It's dangerous because then, like, now people can't say things, writers can't say things that are hard hitting, and like sometimes they need to say that they need to make a bad character.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's... I can't remember what the other part of my argument was.
This is very meta. I just think it's interesting.
But I guess I was just making a point that metacognition is there. So already we are, for that, because that's possible, those people are primed to understand the point when at the end of the play, Katerina says, like, almost sarcastically, like begging the audience to contradict her, that like, we're just here to serve men, and I'm just a servant wife.
Right.
Shakespeare's banking on that metacognition to understand that, look, I'm Shakespeare, I'm writing this, and like, this is stupid, right? Like, get it?
Yeah.
But if you add another character saying this is stupid, there are like, that's just trying.
Like, this is smart.
That's trying to sarcastically, or exactly.
Yeah.
To say this is dumb and cater to the people who wouldn't get that. You're adding another complexity for the people who have the metacognition to be like, Shakespeare's writing that. It's like the Princess Bride when he's talking about the poisons, and he's like, oh, but you give me the poison, and if I was you, then I wouldn't give me the poison.
Yes.
And he's switching around, and it's making it way more complex than it needed to be.
And I think it's good, I'm
very proud of that analogy.
No, it was a great analogy. No, it really is. I think that I've never seen a production. The only reason that I was like thinking of it was because I've read it. But I've never seen a production where they include that framing device at the beginning. And this movie also didn't have the framing device at the beginning, and I don't think it needs it.
No.
If we're assuming merit on the part of our audience.
Like, and so this is the important part too about the end, about you were talking about how I got that. I didn't get it. I didn't like I'm not hanging my hat on like Shakespeare saying that last speech that Katerina gives, where she's like, I know I've been like defiant and like, fuck society and fuck all these norms and fuck the tradition, and like, I want to be my own woman, I'm not just going to be a servant. And at the very end of the play, she's like, oh, we are here to serve men. Like, I'm not saying that Shakespeare necessarily meant that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that last speech clearly is a suspension of her character, of what she's been doing the entire movie.
Yeah.
So that I'm confident in saying. And I'm saying that is unreconcilable with the character she's been, unless there is a huge puzzle piece that is begging to be put in the middle of this puzzle, and that puzzle piece would be what would fit would be Shakespeare's talking to the audience now.
Yeah.
And that is a point that was incredibly relevant and poignant at that time.
Yeah.
And so since that fits, I'm accepting that as a possible theory. And we'll never know because we can't talk to him. But I mean, that fits. I mean, like
it seems like it's
but
screaming
but
at
but
you.
the stakes are it's art, and it is as important as it is to every person that it touches.
Yeah.
So, sure, I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, this is cool. Like, I honestly thought that I was gonna go into this and be like, Paul, listen, fuck this play. It's the worst. We gotta go. We're packing up our shit. We're moving over to Midsummer Night's Dream because this is shit. Like, leave it in a forest fire and let's go.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's a dumpster fire.
It's so fun. The funny thing is that the joke that we had made at the beginning, like, what if I love it? it's completely come true.
No, it's totally come true. And do you feel like, no, I love this play, like, because of this production we saw?
I know we said we like hated Midsummer because of what happened, and we don't like this because of what happened. It will not leave you with the fuzzy feeling in your stomach, and if you're going in it like wanting the play to like wrap up nicely, it will not happen.
Yeah.
But is it worth the watch? Fuck yes. For every other reason that you could watch a movie or a production or a play, or be delighted by something that is 2 generations removed from us. Yes, you should totally watch the 1967 production of Taming of the Shrew, starring Elizabeth Taylor. I almost said Hurley. I'm bad with the names.
No, you're great.
But like literally the 1967 production, because there is a 1976 production. Also, as I was looking these up, as I was also looking these up to get actors' names, the 1967 production on IMDb has a 7.2 rating,
which is great.
Which is, if you have above a 7 on IMDb, like given like enough time for everybody to like get their votes in and to like aggregate, above a 7 is like a great review.
Yeah.
But I mistakenly looked up the 1976 production of Taming of the Shrew. That has an 8.8.
An 8.8?
An 8.8 rating on IMDb, which if you don't know, is huge.
Unheard of.
The Dark Knight, which is universally loved among like everybody, critics and fans and everything, has an 8.0.
We gotta watch that one too. We're gonna have to do an episode.
We have to watch it
at some point. Like, especially because now we like Taming of the Shrew, I guess. Jesus Christ.
We have to watch it. Like I
Who let me like Taming of the Shrew? This is ridiculous.
I don't know.
Man,
but
I'm mad.
I know at some point in this universe we have to get to 10 Things I Hate About You, because that's the whole purpose of this two-part episode is about adaptation.
Yeah.
So we thought we were gonna watch a movie or a production that was a play that you hated and then adapted to a movie that you really love. And talk about how that goes. But turns out we like the play. Yeah. So
in a way. I like it leaves me feeling very uncomfortable, and I like that.
I like it. I mean, I think if it's for a reason, that's my only problem with other Shakespeare. I'm leaning over and I'm like touching Chloe now to just be like, just understand this point.
My hands.
I feel like the in these other episodes, and I am probably in the episodes in the future, that it will seem like I'm complaining about complexity itself. Like I hate, why the fuck did they do that? That makes no sense. And like she'd be like, it's complex. Humans are complex, and that a lot of times that it ends up sounding like that's what you're saying, and I'm like, fuck that. And like, I'm not, the complexity and messiness of human nature is never in and of itself what I'm mad at. I'm mad at that there is no like through line, or there's no like place for me to jump from like this decision to this decision to this decision. I feel like the why is not ever clear. The why of every decision in this movie was crystal clear.
I totally agree.
Until the last one, but it was so stark
that it wasn't real.
It made it clear, like it's like the hand, like the writer is God, and like the hand of God is should be invisible, because the characters do things because all these things happen that are set up, and then dominoes fall for the audience. And if ever someone makes a stupid decision, the hand of God becomes clear, and then it takes me out of the world. Yeah. But at this point, the hand of God was so clear, and it was like showing me itself. The hand was like, here I am on my hand, which was cluing me into like, it's a whole nother level now.
Oh my God, Shakespeare's even cooler than I thought. Jesus.
And like,
you're showing me. This is so cool.
Sometimes movies do that, like Cabin in the Woods. Like, it was like the hand of God was all over it, because it was like the whole movie was a meta point.
Yeah.
About how horror movies have become and what they was good. So like, sorry, watch Cabin.
That's a good point.
Watch Cabin in the Woods. It's great, but
and Frozen.
but yes. So that's what I'm getting at. So, I guess I'm just contextualizing that for anybody who may be listening to previous or future episodes. Like, sometimes it's hard to articulate what the problem I'm having with a certain production.
Yeah, but I feel like...
And it's not complexity in of itself, it's the lack of a strong why.
And I feel like the plays have the why. The productions that we have seen sometimes don't.
Yeah,
and I think that even
P.S. That's the conceit. That's the premise of this
podcast.
Of the whole podcast.
Yeah, and I think that what we're seeing in this movie is a goddamn cathedral of art, because it really took all of those artists coming together in a really profound way.
As we've said, it's hard to make a movie.
I feel like even the Zeffirelli Romeo and Juliet doesn't do it, and this does. And I can't even like describe the catharsis that I'm feeling right now. Not only for having this have come across to both of us, but also like for the new discovery that I made today about like. The hand of God. Like that's it. That's what it is. It's a meta thing that he's doing. It's almost Brechtian. It's complex and it's interesting and fuck yeah, Shakespeare. But yeah,
Brechtian,
so
look it up.
But I still would not say like I just because I like this play now does not mean that I would say, oh, Chicago Shakes should produce this next season, or like you know what I mean? Like I still it would still need to be a director that is fucking got it, because like frankly.
Okay, so you're not saying that it shouldn't be produced. You're saying it's got to be the right director.
Yeah,
because it's such a specific point.
Yeah, and I feel like with so many Shakespeare productions that even aren't this complex.
You're saying Chicago Shakes can't do it.
No, I'm not saying that. I believe in them. They can do it. But I'm saying, like, you know, just arbitrarily, a Shakespeare company that I like shouldn't just go do this because I think it's a good play now.
Yeah.
It really, really needs a lot. It needs so much goddamn love to be poured into it to make it work.
Honestly, from what I've seen, I don't think that's the case for any Shakespeare play. So far, every Shakespeare play that I've seen, it's not just like, oh, the words are there, go do it. They all seem to need a lot of attention.
Yes.
And so, like, I don't for that reason, I don't see from my point of view, I don't see the difference between this one and any other one.
To me, this one feels even more dangerous because it feels like you can try to use this play to make the opposite point. Does that make sense?
Ew.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be mega cringy if that was the case.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it would be hard. I mean, I think you could do it with the words on the page, but I mean, like, man, wouldn't you get, like, boos from the crowd?
Yeah, I hope so. But anyway, like,
it's too meta. The answers are stupid.
Right? Oh, God. Oh, my God. But should we talk about adaptations now? I feel like we've covered the ground on this movie that we love and are also angry at with good reasons. Not at the movie, but at society.
Is this sentence going to end?
No.
With good reasons and do other ones.
This sentence at all.
Absolutely, we should talk about adaptations.
Ever at all.
I think there is a whole lot to dig into with adaptations.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll talk
about
this
fun
again.
with. I mean, like, yeah. I love that I saw 10 Things I Hate About You when it came out.
Yeah.
And so, like, I already had a context for what that movie was. I hadn't, and also I'm happy that I hadn't seen it recently enough to, like, remember exactly what happened.
Right.
To, like, have a preconception of what I wanted this play to be. Mm-hmm. So that was great. I mean, I had I knew who was supposed to be who, kind of.
Yeah.
But we watched that movie. We watched 10 Things I Hate About You right after this play to just, like, oh, okay, this is where it started. And it totally, like, veered off in another direction.
Yeah.
So, 10 Things I Hate About You, I just looked it up. It's a 1999 film. In case we're getting... So
90s.
So in case you
just under the buzzer.
In case you started the previous episode and were like, I really need to know the year. Just listen to all those hours to get to here, and then that's where it'll
I think
be.
it's worth it. It's worth it for that factoid.
Anyway.
So, I think the first thing that I want to kind of reiterate is that the soul of this story is very different from the soul of Taming of the Shrew, and I like that. Like, I still like that. Even though I now like Taming of the Shrew, I still also separately like 10 Things I Hate About You for very different reasons and very different ways. So, I feel like 10 Things I Hate About You basically took the premise of Taming of the Shrew and then just like wrote it off in their own direction. And I think part of it was probably because they were angry about Taming of the Shrew, which I relate to. Do you know what I mean? They were like,
I believe it. I allow it.
And it reminds me of the same sentiment, and not that it is this, but it reminds me of the same sentiment of people making fanfic, like people that read, you know, Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets and were like, you know who should be together? Hermione and Draco, and go off and write their own fanfics about them, like making out and falling in love.
They're
oh my god,
stupid.
so many teens.
Get out of here, teens.
But like they hook.
You're living in a dream world, teens.
Right, but if you like hook into one thing, especially if it's like
live in the real Harry Potter world with me.
God.
Sorry.
Welcome to Real Harry Potter with Paul Stafford. Your new spin-off podcast. I know it. I can feel it. But like people that are like I really want this to work out, like will do that. And I totally get that. Like I've written fanfics in my own brain about Shakespeare characters that I wish worked out. Like we also.
Why did I laugh? I love that actually.
No, it's gay. Like I
didn't mean to scoff.
No, it was a cute scoff. It's all good. It was a not an I hate you scoff, which I appreciate. So yeah, I just feel like I get that sentiment, and I think that we, in a certain way, even though I'm excited to draw the parallels between this and Taming of the Shrew, I also feel like we need to consider them each as their own story, because they really are.
Dude, they're quite different.
I think the
there's
main
almost
thing,
nothing in common. There is like the number of characters maybe, and maybe the premise. That's about it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think
and
it
I'm
was
not mad
smart.
about it.
I know, me neither. I think it was a smart way to start a rom-com, and it was fun. And like for me as a Shakespeare nerd, it's fun.
Yeah, I honestly I think there's so many things about ideas that where like the seed is the important part, and then if you transport that seed, it will grow in its own it will grow in its own environment, and I think both of those things are beautiful.
Yeah.
My playing music with one of my bands, or you know, one of the bands that I've been in throughout my life, like my friends in LA when I was there in 2018 and 2017.
Yeah.
We listened to like different music. Like they already knew each other, they were already together, and I kind of joined late and I started playing bass.
Yeah.
And they listened to songs that I never really listened to. Like I think that they like Talking Heads a lot.
Yeah.
Am I thinking Talking Heads? Yeah. And so they would like play a song, but it was cool because like the role I played in the band was like kind of like producer. Like like there would be like a guitar part that the singer would make, and then I would help make a bass line, or like I would probably marry that to the whatever the drum beat was that the drummer was playing, and I would write the harmonies, and then like I would like kind of help sew
everything together.
I was doing basically what I did for Like What You Like. And
yeah.
I would like, okay, you want to do this is how you kind of build it, making it possible.
Right.
Like, is this like this is your idea, but I'm just kind of helping bridge.
I see what you're
gap.
Going for. Here's how we get there.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And but it was cool because like sometimes I had never heard the song from the radio edit, and he had like just played the acoustic version of it, and he would just that's how he heard the song. And so, but I only heard his acoustic version.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times I like rebuilt it, and like from at least I like filled in the puzzle pieces where I thought they needed to go.
Right. So you're saying you didn't have that original reference.
Exactly.
You just were looking at what was in front of you.
Exactly. And so now the song is now rebuilt through my. Sometimes it's like from my
lack of
my skill.
context.
It's my everything. My skill level, my preference for like what should go here, how this bass line should go based on
what makes sense to you.
Yeah,
not just what.
So all I had is his guitar and the
plot.
melody, and so like I would, based on that guitar and that melody, it should be this bass line, it should be this drum beat,
right,
and it should be those things. And then now the song is like completely different.
That's so
but
funny.
it's the same song.
But I kind of feel like that's exactly what you're doing for Like What You Like too, because for me and Savannah, we knew the original song. And you didn't. Like, you didn't know As You Like It. So, like, when jokes worked for you, we were like, okay, these jokes work, and it's not just because it's funny to us, because we know As You Like It.
And I would stop you. Like,
Yeah.
I would, like, there would be times where, like, okay, you think this is funny, and that might play on stage, but it is not playing on camera.
Right.
And so we would have to, like, readjust and, like,
Totally.
figure that out. And yeah, sure, it's kind of like the same role. It was a little bit different, but, like...
It's similar but different.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying they're the same.
But my point is, the same seed, which is the same premise and the same, like, you know, like, maybe even, like, bold strokes of the story, will turn out wildly different.
Yeah.
Once they're allowed to live
environment.
in the environment they're in.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, like, that's not that profound. I mean, like, it's kind of obvious, but I mean...
Honestly, though, I think that's a huge part of the success of that adaptation, is that they weren't beholden to anything about Taming of the Shrew. They just started...
They let it live in 1999.
It's like a bunch of our friends played Dungeons and Dragons.
Started this movie.
Right. A lot of our friends played Dungeons and Dragons, and
sensibilities is the word I was looking of. God damn it!
Oh my god!
My musical sensibilities.
Oh, that's what it was.
I'm
So it was abilities. It just had sense in front of it.
I'm pretty. We finished this bottle of wine, all right?
Yeah, we're doing great.
I'm pretty deep. I forgot words sometimes.
You drunk bitch.
I'm so sorry.
Just kidding.
Dungeons and Dragons.
But what I was saying was a lot of our friends played Dungeons and Dragons, which I think is a similar kind of thing with this adaptation, where it's like you, as the dungeon master, like, you set up the world, but then they're just gonna go and do the things that make sense within the world. And I think that's a good thing to use for any kind of Shakespeare play in terms of setting up the rules, as we've been talking about before. But, like, setting up the rules of that world in order to make it make sense that the characters would take the actions they take. But for this, it's like they just set up new circumstances and then saw whatever actions the characters would take, and were true to that as opposed to being true to the plot of Taming of the Shrew.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny. Me and you, I'm scared to get into this a little bit too much because I don't want to like alienate any listeners. But, like,
hit me.
Me and you talk about this a lot because of other things. But, like, this concept of, like, disagreeability and how important of a attribute that is to, like, cultivate and use it in the right times.
I think so.
Because, like, sometimes it might seem rude or it might be uncouth to, like, be like, no, this is what needs to happen in a time where maybe everybody else is not on that on that same level.
Yeah.
But one of those things is, like, you know, is the disagreeability to adapt a play and make sure it makes sense to everybody.
Yeah.
And make sure not
everybody,
but, like, you know, like, maybe one person is like, I don't get it. Like, okay, everybody else does. Shut the fuck up. We're moving on. But like, I think it may be very, very easy to be like, these are the words in the script and everybody is saying them and everybody's emoting, so it's got to be important, right?
Yeah.
But then, like, but really somebody important and somebody at the core of the production to stop and say, why are these people doing these things?
All of the questions you just asked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, and I feel like it's like, again, we could having these conversations sometimes. It's like, it's so profound that it's obvious. Like nobody.
But you really do need that. You need to take a. You need to stop
yet
and
it still happens,
back.
and people still have productions where, like, it's not clear. They don't do that.
Yeah. Like, you need to stop and take a step back and go, would these people do this under these circumstances? And if not, do we need to change the circumstances, or do we need to change the actions the people take?
Yeah.
What do we have the liberty to change?
Yeah.
If it's a production of Shakespeare, you probably need to change the circumstances.
Yeah.
If it's an adaptation, you probably need to change the actions they take.
Yeah. And or if I mean, if you can, and sometimes if it hasn't been, like, thought through enough by the director or by the like, every step in the production is like, it's a pass.
Yeah.
So there's like a writing pass, and then there's like a acting and, like, you know, rehearsal pass, and within the rehearsal pass there is some room for rewriting pass, but at a certain level it becomes too late.
Right.
And so if you haven't done those first passes well, it starts to cascade. All the problems start to cascade, and then, like, it's not clear, and, like, then you can't change stuff. Or if you change stuff, then the problem compounds and it becomes like, it breaks the story.
It can and
then now the actors are left just, like, emoting and saying Shakespeare words, and then the next
There's
actor
nothing supporting them.
says the next line that's supposed to be said.
Yes.
And that's what I feel like most of
your bad experiences
with
have
Shakespeare
been.
has
Yes.
been.
Yeah, and I think.
But I've been scared
true.
to say it for so long that when I was younger, when I was in high school, and I was like, it's just probably too smart for me. I don't know.
No. People are just getting stuck, and I think that's part of, like, and I think we've said this before, but just to say it again, like, it's not about us being like, well, that sucks when they did that. It's about being like, well, why did that not work for me? Or like, why did this aspect of this fall apart? Or why did I get stuck on this and wasn't actually able to be present for the next 4 things that were happening?
Mm-hmm.
So that we can, move forward and look at those things and, I don't know, either fix them or like look at ourselves and say what's happening with us and just figure out how to, I don't know, make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I hope we're not harping so much. I'm very in this conversation, but I'm hoping we're not like harping on the same things over and over and over. So I'm gonna try to push it along.
No, honestly, let me just say one more thing, and then please push it along. I think it's good that we're harping on these things because I think it's helping us realize, even within ourselves, within the two of us, what things are important because they keep coming back up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes it even more clear that, like, these are the things we should be paying attention to. And I think that that's what we're looking for in these conversations anyway.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
We'll see how many, see how much, like, our, what we're focused on is transferable or, like, scalable.
Yeah.
But I'm having a great time either way.
I know, I'm having fun.
Okay. Finally, 10 Things I Hate About You. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Fucking 40 minutes into the second episode.
I like what we're talking about.
10 Things I Hate About You
Yeah.
is now based in 1999, and it's basically the same characters. There is Heath Ledger is
Patrick.
Is Patrick Verona, which is supposed to be Petruchio from the city of Verona.
So funny.
And so now there is also Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who plays the lovesick person who is in love with Bianca.
His name's Cameron now.
Man, I'm glad you remember these names, because I didn't.
Got you, babe.
And then Julia Stiles plays the Shrew, which is Katharina, and she's Kate.
Kate, yeah.
And then the younger sister, which is, I forgot her name, Olenek is her last name.
I don't know.
It's the actress, but what's her...
She's adorable. Bianca. It's still Bianca.
It's still Bianca. Yeah, because that's the normal name.
Yeah.
and the premise is still the same because the dad is like, nobody can date. I think prom is the surrogate for married.
Yeah.
And the younger daughter can't go to prom until the older daughter does.
Yes.
And the younger daughter is like young and beautiful, and the older daughter is also beautiful, but like just
pushes everyone away.
Standoffish and like not. Used to be popular is what they say, and then not popular. But the huge difference of this thing is that in this world, in 1999, a dad with 2 young, beautiful daughters would probably not want anyone to date either of them.
Right.
But is just using the like, you can't date and no one can date the younger daughter until the older daughter gets dated. Is like a buffer,
trick,
or it's like a defense against the younger daughter's like proposition to date, because like, no one's ever gonna date my older daughter. She's a bitch.
Right.
Like, so if I just say you can't date until she dates, it sounds fair, but
no one's gonna date her.
So like effectively, I get what I want, and no one dates either of you.
Yes.
And so that's like a completely opposite motivation of the dad. So like that's like an adaptation. That's like,
it's great.
Okay, if there's a dad that wants this scenario, this is the only way it would be believable.
Yes, if they're high school age, yeah.
Exactly. And so at that point, immediately the story has to start to veer off.
Absolutely.
They planted the same seed in different soil.
Yeah.
And they were like, let's go ahead. But a lot of things like work.
Yeah.
Like.
And I think the other biggest like original circumstance change is, and you kept noting it as we were going through 10 Things I Hate About You, because every time you were like, because we just watched Taming of the Shrew, and you were like, well, see, he's redeeming himself. I'm like, Petruchio.
Oh yeah, I was
like,
so pissed that Petruchio like never like walked, like never came back, like
at all.
It's
kept digging,
it's like there's an Uber driver that's like driving you home, but like he missed your turn. Like, oh, he missed that turn, but he can still turn up here. Oh, he missed that one too. Oh, he missed that one too. And like, he just kept going, and then he drives you to his house and kills you.
It totally is like that.
That's what happened.
That's totally what happened.
But we, as an audience member, and as like, and I've been like, sensitized by so much Western media that I'd be like, oh, it's gonna end happily, right? Right? And it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Where was I going with this?
I don't know. Talking about redeeming.
We were talking about redeeming. Oh yeah. So no, you were doing that. I had nothing to do with this. But so, as opposed to Petruchio, who's digging his own goddamn grave the whole time, like this Patrick, played by wonderful Heath Ledger, who is delightful. I wish he were still around so he could keep acting and being awesome.
I love him.
I know, me too. But he's wonderful, like Richard Burton is wonderful in terms of being charismatic, but he actually does things that are concrete. Concrete? Am I becoming oh hello? Broadway. Concrete. Concrete. I don't know. I'm so sorry. To be a nice guy. Like, he does one pretty douchey thing, and then the rest of the movie he's like digging himself out of this badness that he was doing.
Yes, he accepts. So it's the same premises, and all the people who everybody wants to get with the younger daughter, like multiple people.
Yeah.
And like the whole school is like has their eyes on, but like
Bianca.
a couple of main characters want to get with Bianca, and they will move heaven and earth to do it, and so there's a convoluted plan where they pay somebody to date the older sister.
Yeah.
Which is still ridiculous because everybody's beautiful in this movie, and like everybody would theoretically want to get with everybody in this movie. So Julia Stiles is beautiful, and they pay Heath Ledger, who is also beautiful, but like is supposed to be playing the he's still Petruchio in the sense that he is not. He could be popular because he's like a tall, white, beautiful male, like in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And so
with so much hair.
But he just doesn't care about that kind of stuff, and he just like is his own thing.
And he stabs
and so
frogs.
But they decide to like pay him money.
Yeah.
To get with Julia Stiles, and he accepts the money, but like he quickly like doesn't care about it and just likes her.
Yeah. Because they're both outsiders.
Yeah, and because she's just like a real person that has like
good person. And so is he.
She's like I said a real person with like normal thoughts and like just and like has substance. But I don't think necessarily because
no, and not just because of that, but I'm saying like the thing we were kind of hoping for when we were watching Taming of the Shrew plays out in this, where it's like, oh, they kind of connect over being outsiders and being different and being kind of aggressive and like defensive with people trying to get close to them.
I mean, I wouldn't even get that specific. I mean, like I think they are the people who everybody in high school turns into after they graduate high school.
Tell me more.
Not everybody in high school, but I mean, like high school.
Like they're more mature, or like.
No, I think high school is a small town.
Yeah.
And that's what Italy was. It was a small town.
Yeah.
And so high school it makes you. Everybody knows what everybody's doing, so like it creates this like equilibrium that is like a very like a pressure cooker of
caring
what you should be caring people think because you see the same people every day.
Yeah.
And so the people who are weak enough emotionally to they feel like they need to serve whatever it is or like be whatever it is that
dictates
that suffers the least amount of ridicule.
Yeah.
From whatever. Some people don't care. Some people do.
Try not to care.
But like and that like creates these different like sections of like the stereotypical high school scene.
Yeah.
The outcasts, the people who are popular, the people like the cheerleader, like the people, and so. But for anybody who's been to high school and then immediately goes to college and then realizes like, oh, that was an illusion, that was all bullshit because my high school had a few thousand people on like a however many square foot campus, and then my college is like is 10 times the size of that.
Yeah.
With that many more people,
Right.
and nobody sees each other all the time, so nobody cares about that shit anymore.
Right.
It diffuses into like a completely new equilibrium, and so what you learn is that it's not always the immaturity of age that creates the high school circumstances. It's the small town aspect that creates high school circumstances.
Yeah.
And people who live in small towns will probably tell you that people who should be more mature than that act the same way
as they did in high school. Right.
It's the same thing, and I think it's the circumstances more than the age thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make that point to get to the point that I forgot I was making, which was that
they're outsiders, or they're
yeah.
not,
So
they're
I'm just saying I think they were like
they just realized that's happening.
I think they were kindred more than they were. Oh, you're an outsider and I'm an outsider.
Yeah.
I think they were just both like centered enough to be themselves.
Yeah.
Not connecting over the fact that they were other than other people.
For sure.
But that's like get in the weeds. I'm just really just trying to like get through like the point of this movie. But I thought that was an interesting point.
I like that. And they played paintball, and that was cute.
You love that scene so much. I love that
scene. They kiss.
But anyway, so he liked her, and so that was the same. But like a huge difference in like 1999 as opposed to 1500. Oh, I was gonna say 1500s.
Yeah.
Was that she has power. She can't be carried off and like forced to marry somebody.
Yeah, she has actual agency.
So that is a huge like left turn, or like veer off, like in the branch of this tree where like this other movie.
Yeah.
Because he has to act as a man would act if he wants to court her.
Yes.
And so he has to, he's on the up and up, and like everything, which it is honest enough. The only thorn in the side of like their relationship is the fact that the premise of it is tainted.
Yeah.
And so if she ever finds out, then it's a problem, which obviously she does, because
of course,
otherwise we wouldn't have a movie. But then he has to like win her back, which we were all hoping Petruchia would have to do. Mm-hmm. We were hoping that she would be like, fuck you, and like everybody would respect that fuck you power she had,
right?
And he'd have to win her back.
Yeah.
But every time he'd be like, nah, I own you, and it just kept forcing us to live with that terrible fact.
Yes.
Which is that's how shit was.
Oh yes.
I mean, and there's a lot of things in like society and life that like certain things are like how they are, but like none of us admit it.
Yeah.
And none of us, and a lot of people won't there's a lot of us won't like cash in on the fact that we could do certain things. Mm-hmm. Like there are a lot of like married couples where the man could physically overpower the wife, mm-hmm. but they don't, because they like do the math on like how that would play out afterwards. Yeah. And there's a lot of men that do. But like but what I mean is that like there's a lot of things that like it's just like it's unspoken truths like within our society, not just like with men and women, with everything. Yeah. And we don't really talk about it, but I think Shakespeare and Taming of the Shrew was like forcing us to like
encounter
deal with
that. Yeah.
I think you like it a lot.
Oh no. Well, this is exciting though. Like it's me changing my opinion about something, which is cool.
Yeah. No, it's my first time.
So. I mean, honestly, like if I'm changing my opinion to like Shakespeare more, oh no, this is the worst.
So yeah, that was like that's a huge difference, which has to change the story fundamentally.
Yeah.
That she has more power in 1999, or at least more freedom.
Yes.
Which is
so. Here's another interesting thing that I had thought before we did this podcast, especially about like this Zeffirelli 1967 thing. Like, so I was like, okay, he's got Richard Burton, he's got Elizabeth Taylor, they're married, they're in love, they're like, they've got their little contentious thing, it's kind of sexy, it's whatever.
So the two leads in we already talked about this last episode, that the two leads in...
Oh, we talked about this, yeah, because I told you this on the podcast.
I just want to reiterate, just in case someone's tuning in this episode. Richard Burton
and Elizabeth Taylor.
the two leads in the 1967.
They were married to other people during Cleopatra, where they met or became friends, had an affair, divorced their other people, got married to each other.
Yeah,
they
but
also
were married during this production?
Were married during this production. They got divorced later, but then got remarried later. It's crazy. And then they got divorced again. Okay, anyway. It's all very drama. But, so they're married during this. So, like, he's got these, like, very married, like, kind of sexy, like, we oppose each other, there's some tension here, relationship. They want to do a Shakespeare play. They want it to take place in Italy. Why don't they just do fucking Much Ado About Nothing? Like, that's a play where you've got two people, like, this play had already been written by this time. Damn, it was written in, like, 1600, so, like, it's definitely around. We could do that play.
It just came out.
It just came out. But, like, you could do either play. Why choose Taming of the Shrew? Like, why not just do Much Ado About Nothing? But, so anyway, now I've come...
Do you think it was their choice?
No, I'm talking about Zeffirelli choosing.
Oh.
As the director.
I don't know.
So...
He crushed it with this one.
I know, he did crush it. So, like, my mind has been changed. But going into it, I was like, well, why didn't they just do Much Ado About Nothing? And I think that it's funny because 10 Things I Hate About You has the premise, kind of Taming of the Shrew, but it plays out more like Much Ado About Nothing. Which,
does it?
I know you don't know the plot, but, like...
But...
But basically the plot is kind of like contentious relationship between this guy and girl. Guy, like, does a lot of things that earn the girl's trust. Like, who is originally like, get away from me, I don't want to talk to you. And then they end up together. And there's a subplot with a girl that likes guy and they like each other and they almost get married, but then they kind of don't. And that part is interesting and complicated. But anyway, I feel like it makes sense to me now why they chose to do Taming of the Shrew, but, like, it's just interesting to, like, see the parallels and not parallels between those two, and to realize 10 Things I Hate About You is more like Much Ado in terms of structure than it is Taming of the Shrew.
That's funny.
Yeah, and mostly because the two main characters actually love each other. It's not, like, an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
I know.
I mean... I don't know what to I mean, like...
I mean, you can't know if it's...
I really can't analyze
you don't know
that,
Much
yeah.
Ado About Nothing, yeah.
No, but I mean, like, fair enough. I mean, it's just, like... It honestly makes sense. Like, you know, a lot of times artists aren't necessarily innovative with every single work they do. Mm. A lot of times work...
is influenced by past work, or, like...
Or is just a permutation of the same seed.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a musician, like, I've seen and, like, experienced that myself, but also sometimes there's just more to say, or sometimes there's just, like, another side of the same thing.
Yeah, or sometimes you realize something more about the thing that you'd originally been grappling with.
Yeah.
Like, you grappled with it and you're like, okay, got it.
There's more
and then there's more.
Mine out of this subject matter.
Yeah.
You okay?
I'm good. My headphones
Chloe
had a moment.
Couldn't decide how to put back on the headphones for like 30 seconds.
I know, I was trying to put my earrings on, and I was like,
because
I don't need this.
They're super important.
They're so important, Paul!
Yeah, it's just funny that, like, if you just go ahead and take one of his plays and then just give it another time period, it turns into another one of his plays.
It's funny.
Which is an interesting concept.
It is. And especially if you're trying to, not morph it, but if you're trying to steer it in the direction of a romantic comedy, then it also takes on a different one of his plays.
Yeah, there is definitely, it probably was, I'm sure, by a studio exec or the director or whatever of 10 Things I Hate About You was like, oh yeah, but it's got to finish this way.
Right.
Otherwise...
You know what else that reminds me of? So... But, like, we were talking before about how, like, Taming of the Shrew starts as a comedy, and then it's, like, it ends on a very uncomfortable note that makes us feel kind of dark about society in general.
Understatement.
Yeah, extremely dark, extremely uncomfortable. But it reminds me of, there's this moment in Hamlet that we've talked about a lot, because we put a reference to it in Like What You Like, where, so Polonius comes up and he's introducing this company of players, and he's like, they can do any kind of play you like. They can do pastoral, comedic, tragical, like, and then he starts combining the types. He's like tragical pastoral, pastoral comical, like historical pastoral, tragical comical.
Every single tiny granular gradient in this spectrum of plays, we could do it all. But I'm not gonna just say I'll list them and it's like supposed to be funny.
Right, and it's especially funny supposedly because people would make fun of Shakespeare for doing that, like for combining different tropes, like for being like, oh well, this is a history, but it kind of veers into comedy, and then at the end it's a tragedy.
Got it.
You know, and people still make fun of people for doing that now. It's like, well, what is it? People want you to define it based on a certain kind of...
man, that's hilarious. I didn't know that.
I know.
I didn't know that, and that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Because we talk about tropes a lot, and we talk about their like use, like their like functional use.
Yeah.
Because when we're talking about people like, okay, this character is doing a thing.
Yeah. And
a thing is useful because we recognize it, and then you can, as a writer or a director, you can use that as like you're mining a cultural like backdrop that like everybody already gets this thing, so I don't have to explain what this character is.
Yeah.
He just is a thing. He's like a standard version of this thing, and if I can paint my story with like a few of those things, then I can spend less time on exposition and like developing these things, and I can just like use them to paint with bold strokes and only focus on character development or for the characters that I really want to focus on.
Yeah.
And so they are useful, and you can even scale that concept up to like a whole genre.
Yeah.
And like this genre's doing things, and like now these characters are just part of this genre. Everybody gets it. So now I can like dive deeper into the story I want to because I have the genre doing all this work for me on the front end. And like that makes sense, and it's
especially interesting when you're subverting expectations, which I feel like is exactly what happens in Taming of the Shrew.
Sure, but also just even the fact that like just mixing genres, like there is so I'm scared to get into this because it's gonna be so long, but let's fucking get into it.
Let's do it.
So like there is when I went through my like movie renaissance of like I went through many movie renaissance because like when I was a kid. I would just gotta like watch movies, and movies could do the most ridiculous shit, and I would just be like, and I would have to change because the movie couldn't be wrong.
Sure.
The movie's supposed to do that.
That's funny.
And I would have to find a way to believe that whatever they did made sense.
Wow.
And so I just already, Chloe, you know I'm a robot, but like the how to deal with what people chose to do and how they did it was just. I gave up on it like really early because I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But like the movie's right, so I just like I don't understand anything that's in anybody else's head, and I never tried for a long time.
Yeah.
I just didn't get it.
Whoa.
And that was part of the reason. Like I told you, like how like it took me a long time to develop like a really specific sense of empathy because like. I don't know why anybody does what anybody does.
Funny.
And part of that was
because of the movies.
Part of that was
feeding
movies.
you bullshit.
I mean, part of that was just my willingness to like give you the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
And I just assumed
funny.
I assumed that the world worked, and I assumed that people were getting real personal right now. I assumed the world worked, and I assumed that people had reasons for what they did because I had reasons for what I did, and I assumed that there were good ones and they were thought out. And if this movie studio was doing it, that's real important. Somebody had to make this choice. And so like everything that happened in movies was for a reason.
Whoa, that reminds me of what John Mulaney says about like figuring out that adults aren't always right.
I think the earlier a kid can figure that out, I think the better.
Me too. I feel like I'm gonna scream that at my kids and be like, "Hey, listen, I'm dumb sometimes."
You're just like yelling at our toddler, like 2 + 2 is 5, and they're just like pointing, like they're just like they're counting on their fingers and crying. Like, Chloe, what are you doing? They need to learn.
They gotta know. Like smoking a cigarette for no reason. It's the only cigarette I've ever smoked.
So, god damn it, what point was I trying to make? I was trying to get at that
genre mixing.
Yes. So. It's useful for a lot of to use a genre or to use like a character or like a trope
to get you in.
It's useful because we recognize it.
Yeah.
And it's useful for genres, but like when you try to jump outside of that and someone's like expecting it, like okay, anyway, now I remember what I was getting at. So it took me a long time, and I grew up in the 90s. Like, I was born in 89, so like a lot of the movies during that time, especially action movies, were like of a time and of a place and of a genre. And I spent I watched a lot of movies as I was a kid, and just even growing up, like, I was a very movie person. And so the different genres of movies were very clear to me what was happening, and I would recognize things even now. Like, a lot of our humor is reference humor. I quote shit all the time.
Yeah.
When I see something, I'm like I get it. I have the reference ready.
I know the trope.
Ready in my memory to pull that up, and it's useful to like this is a cultural thing. People will recognize this. I recognize this. We can do this thing, and it's like having like pre-ready made like versions of all these things you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And when I see when I initially started to watch movies that like stretched genres or mixed them, I would, cause like when you have a genre, it starts off and you see the trajectory and you see where it's going.
It's comforting in a way.
And you expect this ending to have a certain way.
Yeah.
And when the ending doesn't have that, you're disappointed. And it took me a long time to see enough of these examples to see that it didn't necessarily mean it was bad. It just meant it was unexpected. And I think a huge portion of just general casual moviegoer audiences will make that same jump to, if it's unexpected, it's bad. And as people who aren't in the acting world or like play world, where like people are trying to push those boundaries often and haven't had that kind of like sacred format
structure,
format like shattered over and over and again. It's not a muscle that's been built. It's very uncomfortable, and they're not used to thinking that art should be uncomfortable. And so
what does that mean? Does that mean we should gently ease people into it more? Does that mean
I just think it's an important thing to understand about like the general audience, and and it goes back to what we're trying to do. Are you trying to reach the widest audience possible? If that's the case, then you should probably function under the assumption that they're stupid. Maybe not. I mean, I may be being like too blunt with this, but I mean, there's a reason why pop music is very simple and jazz music is very complex.
I wonder if the answer to that then is like, show people 10 Things I Hate About You and be like, yeah, we did it, 10 Things I Hate About You, and then show them Taming of the Shrew.
I mean, I think I think the same thing I've always thought, that the active and passive consumption, like the art that can accomplish both of those things, is the mark of greatness, because it has something for both audiences.
So maybe is there something between Taming of the Shrew and 10 Things I Hate About You that's like a good...
I think Taming of the Shrew, the movie, the 76 we watched, will come across to anybody.
Yeah.
I think if they just give it a chance, it'll be great. It was great to me. I am functioning on both those levels. I feel like I'm watching for my past self and my present self.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah. Do you feel like if we showed this Taming of the Shrew, because I'm curious about this for myself too, especially because I'm comparing it to the Zeffirelli Romeo and Juliet that everybody gets fed, like it's like it's the carbon copy school lunch thing that everybody gets. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if we showed them this instead, what would their impression of Shakespeare be better going forward?
Showed who this again?
High schoolers. Like, is that too young?
I would like to think that I would have gotten it in high school. Like, I watched like the super old 70s version of Macbeth in high school, and I was like, most times when I was watching Shakespeare in high school or listening to it or reading it, I had a really good teacher, Miss Smith. Shout out.
Miss Smith, what's up? I hope you're good.
It's the most common name. Like,
we'll find her.
Any teacher named Miss Smith, I hope you like this.
I hope they're all good.
She was great. She was she made every effort to make this play come across. Yeah. She was stopped and made us think about what Shakespeare was talking about after every sentence.
Yeah.
I didn't have the discipline really to think about it, and I was also just why would I care about this?
Sure.
But at the same time, when I did spend the time, it took all my effort just to realize what was happening at every moment.
Yeah.
And so if it takes all your effort just to figure out like what's happening, like literally like this person did this person said this, and this person wants to do this, like it takes all your cognition just to like figure that out, then you have to like go back to decide why all those things are happening and like what's
right.
You know
and
what I mean?
Is
like,
this story good? Then once I know all those
prerequisites, it's literally watching a movie in another language.
Yeah.
And so
but do you feel like if somebody showed you, like, let's say you took like a 3-week crash course on Shakespeare and language and whatever, and like maybe part of that was like learning some of the scenes from Taming the Shrew, like, or the language of that, and then somebody showed you this movie and you're like 15 or 16.
Oh, I think if I was 15 or 16, I could have watched this movie and loved it the first time.
Nice.
It's that good. It's that clear. It's that funny.
I gotta call some high school teachers and make this the frickin'
that good. I wouldn't have needed anything to like this movie.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Why am I not showing this to all the children? Oh my God.
Yeah, no. I thought you were about to say something about like Othello or Hamlet. Like, those ones are tough. I mean, for me to care about what anybody wants. Like in this movie, everything was clear, and then it started to become like, you know, at the beginning, everything was clear. It started to like, you know, slowly unravel. Not like a huge jump as to like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, it was like, it slowly unraveled. And then like, you know, the things you're like, why is she doing this? And at the end was the only clear hand of God moment of the writer. Yeah. And that you could probably have a 5-hour conversation with by itself.
For sure.
Like, but like, you could hinge it on that. Like my point is, you don't have to have a whole curriculum explaining what happened in the movie to the kids. You could have it and focus on that one thing that was the important part that contextualized the whole play.
That's awesome. That's exactly what I want.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like, yeah, no.
It's like all I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Right? Like, you don't, like the what happens in the play should be the obvious part, and then you discuss like the key point, as opposed to like having the curriculum that's just like catches people up with like the sequence of events, which is how my high school class and what I suspect a lot of high school classes are with Shakespeare. Yeah, it's just like spending all this effort just to like get you to understand what happened in order. Right. And I mean, I'm not blaming my teacher specifically because, you know, I went to an inner city high school and like nobody gives a shit about this shit. Like, it's hard to teach it.
But the nice thing about it too is like, this is a film. This is packaged. Like, you could show it exists on its own forever digitally. Anywhere.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of value in the fact that it's a film.
Me too.
I after the Kenneth Branagh Hamlet, I'm like, I was very convinced that the films existed just as an archive for humanity, like just so it wouldn't go forgotten. Like we like the pages could get burned, but like we have another something. Yeah,
we have some record of a performance of it.
Yeah. Anyway.
Man. Wow, did we just like figure out that this is one of the most valuable films in terms of Shakespeare?
It might be. The 76 one might be even better.
I mean, we're gonna find out. Well, we should predict right now. Do you think we're gonna love or hate that one? I have a feeling I'm gonna hate it. I don't know why.
Well, now I'm convinced that there is a good play in there to be mined.
For sure.
And so the fact that this had a 7.2 on IMDb and the other one has an 8.8, I haven't looked at the other ones. Like if I see the Kenneth Branagh ones like have like an 8 point something, I'd be like, IMDb, you know nothing. Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, Kenneth Branagh, I love you, dude.
I love him.
And you did a really good job, but like the movies in general, like I feel like I have the same problem with them as I do. Just like I don't think they come across as clear.
It doesn't come across as clearly as it could.
Yeah, so I don't know that, but I don't know. I think I saw like a couple of pictures as I looked it up. I mistakenly looked it up because I was looking for the 67, but I found the 76. Yeah. I saw a couple of people in business suits, so it's like it's set in like modern times. Yeah. So I don't know if that's gonna come across if I'm expecting like to see a guy carry a woman off, you know, and try to reconcile that with the times and the cultural implications. So if I try to see, like, again, that's why the fucking Romeo and Juliet with, like, people, like, the Romeo plus Juliet bullshit fucking horrible movie.
We'll get there, Paul. It's gotta be its a whole other, it's whole episode. Because
I watched that in high school, and I believe it will hold up exactly as I remember, and how terrible it was.
I feel like I'm gonna like it more than I used to.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I'll give it another shot.
Yeah.
I will. Anyway, I don't know how much there is to say specifically about 10 Things I Hate About You, because like it's a good story, and there's a lot of, you know, good themes in it. It has lots to do with like redemption and like empowerment.
Yeah.
You know like the Bianca at this point like has like this whole other, you know, guy situation where she like, you know, punches the asshole dude to like save her guy.
Yeah.
You know, and there's like and there's also Kate's independence that she finds, you know, throughout the movie.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a lot of things that just, you know, branch off in different directions, but like
the dungeon
it doesn't necessarily like, you know, relate back to Shakespeare at that point. Like it's its own thing. It starts at the same seed, and it like grew in another place.
It branches in a totally different direction because of the circumstances, because of the environment.
But yeah,
and I think it's great.
Still a really good movie.
Yeah, they're like they're different pieces of art with the same original seed. That go in totally different directions, and I think one of them ends up in a very clean place, and one of them ends up in a very messy place. And I think both of them are very honest, based on where they exist and what vein they fill.
Yeah, and that's like all I think that's all at the core of what people want from a story.
Yeah.
They want it. I mean, like, it's nice that it has its own wrapped up ending of like what it's.
It's satisfying. It's more satisfying than Taming of the Shrew. But I think that Taming of the Shrew is still as valuable, if not more so, than 10 Things. And I also think that both of them make a lot of points about gender in different ways. Like, I think the 10 Things I Hate About You is very like 90s jaunty, like, I'm gonna own my gender and fuck you if you don't like it. And I think that because that's what makes sense for the 90s, and I think that Taming of the Shrew is like, I can't say what I really feel about this because we can't. Because
I can only say it and then try to give you a hint that it's sarcastic.
Yeah.
Ew.
I know. So uncomfortable.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like that gets into like some really like I think murky territory about like what art is, what it's supposed to do, what its place is, like where it can go.
Yeah.
Like it's anything. Like I think that's the kind of like the beautiful and like the also like
difficult,
frustrating and dark thing about art is that like
profound.
It could be whatever it needs to be at any time.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Yeah. But either way, both of them very good movies, worth watching.
For sure.
And
for different reasons.
This is another monster episode. I think we just kind of like talked ourselves all the way into the night. I hope it was entertaining, if nothing else.
We ended up back in the pile of wool.
But also like coherent and like, you know, I hope that the summary part was, you know,
very entertaining for me. I don't know about anyone else, but I had a great time listening.
I hope it was logical and linear and like it was followable.
I learned a lot about myself today and about Shakespeare.
But I've had a really good time. So
will you shake my hand?
Sure,
sir.
That's exactly how we should do that. But until the next time,
I'm Chloe Baldwin.
I'm Paul Stafford. And
I hope the gap just got a little bit smaller.
Good night.
Sleep tight.
Bedtime.
You're a fan of Shakespeare.
More than a fan. We're involved.
Thanks for listening to Shakeshero. You can check out our website and email us your suggestions at shakeshero.com, or you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at the handle Shakeshero. We're on Spotify and Apple Music, so please review, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next episode.